how anybody else does it. I don't know how many you get. But the fact remains, it should be prompt. We pay for it, we expect it, and we should be getting the responses that we request. It's our information. We pay for it, we own it. But if we can't get it, there's something wrong, Mayor. So I hope you would look into that. I've been talking to you about the Keisha Farm and the dishonest town council that we've had in providing information. Here we go again, more information that's asked for. You know, in the midsummer, you held in 2018, you had discussions on the Keisha Farm. You purchased an appraisal for the Keisha Farm and never shared it with the public in the appropriate time. I only got the copy of the appraisal 9 months after the referendum. There's something wrong. There's something wrong with our system and how it works. 9 months after, I then see that the Keisha Farm was appraised at $1.7 million at the high side. And the town of Wethersfield paid $2.4 million for it. That's horrible. That's not the way we do business. If the honest way, and you're not honest, that council was not honest. They held it back because they knew 1.7 would never pass on a price of, negotiated price of $2.4 million. You know, Tony, who's sitting here, is that Tony? Maybe not. It looks like Tony. You look like Tony, I'm sorry. But Mr. Lesser sat on that council back then, and everybody should know he sat on it. And he didn't share that with us at all, and he knew it. Mr. Forrest, you're another one that sat on that council. And you're running, he's running, you're running, Mayor, you're on that council. You never shared with this public that the value of that property was $1.7 million. It's not up to me to go have an appraisal done of the property, and the town paid $3,200 for it. And in the end, the dishonest town added another appraisal. Instead of 2 appraisals, it had 3 now, a year later. Very dishonest. So I think when we look at FOI, we should be very prompt, and I hope things change. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. And just to answer your questions, Mr. Young, about the September 13th meeting, we had a special meeting on August 26th, if I'm not mistaken. September 6th was Labor Day, and then Rosh Hashanah was the week after, or the Tuesday after. We couldn't hold it then because the meeting on the 20th fell a week after the 13th, and it was a light agenda. We could move what was on for the 13th to today's agenda. So that's kind of the sequence of where we were from the 26th to today. So, and I think there was proper notice that all meetings were canceled for that. It just so happened to fall on both Labor Day and the Jewish high holidays. Anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Seeing none, we will continue on with the agenda. Council reports. Are members up here with any council reports? Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, Mark, for keeping me informed today. Very busy day for the Wethersfield Volunteer Fire Department.
And thank you for showing up at my house.
Council reports from anybody tonight. Councilman Forrest.
I'll just have a very quick report that went to the Wethersfield High School football game on Friday with about 2,000 people there, and we did a nice job against Berlin. And it was great to see everyone. It's a true community event. I would recommend to everyone, including the council, to hit a high school football game, especially the home ones under the lights on Friday night. We got a good team. and I'm excited, so congratulations to the football team, and I like what the community feel when we all get together. I saw you there, Mayor, saw a couple other people there. It was great.
I concur. It was. Friday Night Lights are back here, and it was the game of the week, too. So
Certainly was.
yeah. Former Speaker of the House, Joe Arasimowicz, is the head coach of Berlin, so I kind of razzed him in the beginning. But I got to be honest, with 3 minutes left to go in that game, I got a little nervous. But we did pull it off. Congratulations to the Wethersfield Eagles football team on that.
Mayor, I would second Councilor Forrest's comments. I said, what an awesome idea to put lights and turf on that field.
I mean, that council really had to have some guts to do that back then.
Back then, it's paid off.
Well, you've
paid
been around a
dividends.
long time.
That's good. And council comments from anybody. I don't know if that was a council report or a council comment.
It was admittedly borderline.
Admittedly, yeah, we can tie B and C in together. Council comments from anybody? Well, I've just got a couple. Bear with me as I go through my notes. I want to reiterate what former councilman and current Board of Ed member Ken Lesser had said. He is chairman of the Mayor's Charity Ball, Wethersfield Mayor's Charity Ball, and it was a very successful event last week. Raised over $10,000, and in total, I think over the last 6 years, under 3 different mayors. Not so much last year. We did our best with what we were dealt with, but we have raised over $100,000 through this charity event for these 3 programs. This year was $10,000, and Councilman or Board of Ed member Lesser had mentioned that it's the weekend backpack program, the Fresh Food Senior fresh food providing for those who, for whatever reasons cannot provide for themselves, and then a preschool scholarship as well. So those 3 charities have definitely reaped the benefits of this wonderful community. Also, looking back, you had mentioned the football game. That was a great way of bringing the community together. We do have a couple of events coming up. I did want to remind the residents there is a flu clinic coming up in October. We always do our flu clinics at the community center. In the past, it's been you come in, roll up your sleeve, get your shot, and you go out. Last year, they did a drive-through flu vaccine clinic for both days. This year, they will be doing it that way. But one caveat, you do have to sign up for it. There are pre-registered slots for it. You can go on Central Connecticut Health District's website to sign up. They are on October 7th from 2 to 6 and October 19th from 10 to 2. So you do have a afternoon and a early morning one to go to on those. I see Peter Gillespie, our town planner, here as well. We talked briefly before the meeting. Salute to Business is also something that is a great community event here in town. Over the years, they've held the event at various places, most recently before COVID at the Wethersfield Country Club. This year, the river down at 100, I think Great Meadow Road, is going to host it for us this year, and I believe outdoors under the heat lamps that they've installed. That is on October 20th. I wanted to say 6 to 8, if I'm not, or 5 to 5:30 to 8. Again, October 20th at the River Restaurant. It's a great way to champion our businesses in the business community here in Wethersfield. They've struggled over the last year, like many businesses have. But there are a number of outstanding soon-to-be award recipients that will be up that night. So hats off to EDIC, the Chamber, and Peter's work to bring that back after a year hiatus. Speaking of businesses, the Old Wethersfield Shopkeepers Association has done a great job this year. If you remember correctly, and it just seems like yesterday, the Scarecrows on Main was last year. I think it was at the first event that people kind of broke free from their house to go out. It was outdoors. I can't believe it was a year ago. They are taking applications or submissions for anybody who wants to create their own scarecrow. A lot of hard work goes into that and into the planning of it, but they've done a great job. And again, thanks to Peter for that. It comes on the heels of an incredible Bikes on Main event that kicked off the summer, Porch Fest that wrapped it up, and now we're into the third season of the year with fall and the scarecrows. That runs the entire month of October. I think you can get them up on October 2nd and put them out there. And closer to now, just this Wednesday, we do have the meet and greet with Chief of Police applicants. I believe there's 4 of them. It is Wednesday night, the 22nd, from 6:30 to 8 at the community center. So for those in the audience tonight or those listening, if you want an opportunity to meet some of the candidates that are, or the candidates for the next police chief, that would be this Wednesday, 6:30 to 8 at the community center. And that kind of wraps up some of my notes for what's been going on and some of the big things that are occurring in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I will turn it over to Gary to give his final town manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, and to the Town Council. Mine will be short. I get to cross off a number of things that you already discussed, so thank you for the highlights. I'll hit the topic that nobody wants to talk about, but COVID update. Weathersfield's positivity rate is currently back up slightly over last week. We're at 14.8 cases per 100,000, up 12 from 12.9 cases, which is the equivalent of about 33 new cases over a 7-day period. Again, it's a rolling average over 14 days. We are teetering on red. Red designation crosses at 15 cases per 100,000 or more. So we've kind of bounced back and forth between, we went from yellow, skipped over orange, went to red, then slowly came back down into orange. Now we're slowly creeping back up, but I'm hoping that we remain under 15. Just facts, approximately 70% of all new cases in the state are unvaccinated individuals, while almost 99% of the hospitalizations are for those who are also unvaccinated. So they are having some statistics on a state level in terms of vaccinated versus unvaccinated. We're not able to get that at the micro level for the town at this point. And we're going to continue, the town will continue. There's an emergency operations group that focuses on the health and well-being of the community related to COVID. They'll continue to monitor the positivity rate as we move forward and hopefully continue to update you weekly, if not more often. Just some remarkable statistics in terms of Wethersfield. Vaccination rates for Wethersfield are some of the highest in the state. The population 65 and over has achieved over 91%. 45 to 64 is over 81%. 25 to 44 age range is over 81% as well. 18 to 24 is 82%, and the 12 to 17 are currently over 63%. That's probably the biggest jump in the last 2 weeks. It's up about 7% from 2 weeks before. And keep in mind, fully vaccinated is considered after you've had your second shot, at least 2 weeks after you've had your second shot. So that's why that big jump over the last 2 weeks. And as a reminder, the vaccine may not prevent COVID from spreading, but it may reduce the symptoms in those who are vaccinated, and that's ultimately the goal, is to reduce hospitalizations and the number of individuals who are sick. I've already mentioned the police chief. Just some positive news, and Peter is in the audience too, so I hope I'm not taking anything away from you, but Connecticut General Statute 8-30J requires Connecticut municipality once every 5 years to prepare or amend and adopt an affordable housing plan for the municipality. The Connecticut Department of Housing back in June made funding available for communities to help assist with meeting that requirement, and so back in June, this council had the forethought to approve and accept, if awarded, a grant from the Department of Housing, and we were successful. We received about $15,000, or we received $15,000 for an affordable housing technical assistance grant to be administered through Pete and the planning department. And so I thank you very much for your work on putting that together. I know I had mentioned this previously, but again, just champion Pete on this one. Successfully wrote an application to the Connecticut Humanities on behalf of the Weathersfield Heritage Commission to expand the Heritage Walk Interpretive Trail. He was also successful in getting that one, and I believe the amount was $4,999 or thereabouts. That was the exact request, and we received it. If you recall, the council also approved the application and acceptance of a grant award from the Department of Health and Human Services, the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, for $125,000. It had the ability for us to do a multi-year grant for $125,000 per year. We were about 3/4 of the way through year one and applied for year two funding, and recently were awarded that second year funding for $125,000 to engage and mobilize youth, parents, and community partners to help reduce youth alcohol and drug use within the community and create a safe and healthy community. So thanks to the hard work and dedication of Kathy Bagley's team in Social and Youth Services, led by Assistant Director Erica Texera. Again, the town received year two of that funding, and I'm hopeful that we'll receive it for the next 3 years after. And lastly, if I may, to the council and mayor and council, I want to take a moment of personal privilege, if I may. As you know, I have tendered my resignation as town manager. I said in my letter of resignation, the past 2.5 years have been amazing and also extremely challenging. Weathersfield is a great community with much to offer residents and businesses. The life of a town manager is also amazing. There are really high highs and unfortunately really low lows. 50% of the people dislike your decisions 100% of the time. It's mostly a thankless job, but the gratitude you do get is enough to keep you going. Since day one, and I can remember saying this in the library at the welcome meeting put on by Brooke Berry and the library board, I said that what helps keep Weathersfield going isn't just the paid staff, who are absolutely tremendous, and I'll talk about them in a moment, but it's that large group of committed volunteers from the Board of Assessment Appeals, which I think is the first alphabetically, to the council, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, I think I got the whole alphabet. We are a community run by people who genuinely care about where they live. That makes this community unbeatable as a place to move to and be in. I was just counting right before this meeting that there are more than 40 commissions in this town with over 300 volunteers participating within that process. This town could not operate without those people who use their personal time to make our town the best in the state. And I made the joke earlier, but speaking of volunteers, I'd like to give a special thanks to the men and women who arrived at my house around 5 p.m. today to respond to a fire call. Josh, my 12-year-old, bravely called 911 and helped my neighbor Mike use a fire extinguisher to suppress the fire before finally leaving the house. And then he called me. But Weathersfield Fire Department did an excellent job. They isolated the issue and minimized the damage to the kitchen, and I really do appreciate that quick response. I live a half mile away from here, and I heard the tones go off, and yet everyone beat me there, in truck, in full gear. They were in the house as I was driving up the street, and I include them in my recognition of the volunteers that I said above. I also should mention thank you to Officers Sanzo and Salvatore for being kind. They kept Josh very comforted during the event. When I pulled up, they were working with him, and I think too often we take for granted how police, fire, and ambulance personnel put the safety of others first over their own safety. And as a community, we should never lose sight of how important they are to this, to our lives. Again, as I said in my letter, I remain committed to the success of this town that I've lived in for more than 20 years. As I leave my role as town manager, I want to acknowledge my management team and town staff. I could not have been successful without their leadership, advice, work ethic, and commitment to this town. They do well in handling the day-to-day pressures associated with serving the public and should be recognized for their dedication. I thank the management team for their support and patience with me. I feel humbled to have worked alongside them. I also look forward to seeing the completion of the numerous endeavors we work together on that I know will come to fruition over the next few years. I thank the town for their support for me over the past 2+ years, and I hope I served you well. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or if I can be of assistance to my successor. I thank you again for that opportunity to serve this town. It has been my pleasure.
Thank you, Gary. I'll open the floor up to anybody who wants to comment for Gary. I know I'll reserve my comments for later, but if anybody wants to talk about Gary's tenure here, the challenges and the successes that we have seen. I know he'd come in, Matt, when you and I were on council on opposite sides of this dais. So maybe as somebody who was in the majority when Gary came on board, I'll open the floor to you.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. I think Gary was the most qualified at that time, and I continue to think he's a great town manager for our town and the right person we need. I'm sorry that you're going to be going, but I also recognize the last 2 years of crazy that this town has had, from COVID, from the pandemic alone, but the chief thing and everything else, and it's just, I'm going to miss you, personally and professionally, both. True. And I know your qualifications are. I'm sure you're going to get a great job wherever you go. Maybe you have offers already. I know you haven't told me yet, and that's okay. I certainly respect that. But wherever you go, I think they're going to get a great person in you, a person that's caring, a person that has good work product, and a person that's capable. And I think that's what you've given to this town. And I know, Mike, you know this as well as I do. Gary lives on my street. He don't drive by like at 1 o'clock in the morning coming home from work. And that was all the time. Or 11 o'clock, and like, I'll be out mowing the lawn at 9, he's like coming home, suit still on. And I mean, the dedication can't be beat. I've never seen anyone as dedicated to this town as you have been in every aspect, or at least other people that are equal. And I don't think there's anything else in a town manager you can ask. Someone who's been here, cares about the town, works as hard as he can. And those are my thoughts about Gary, and I wish you the best. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, but wherever you go, I wish you and your family the best.
Any other comments? Well, I'll take the liberty to say, to follow in what Councilman Forrest had said. You are a hard worker, and you are a champion for your hometown, and that is without question. Councilman Forrest mentioned that we came in, shortly after the election. We had some planning sessions and strategy sessions to look for a vision of not only this council, but of you and what we had wanted to embark on. And many of those, we've started to crack the surface on. But Matt is right. COVID came shortly after the election, a couple months after. For at least this council, I know you were faced with some challenges when you first became town manager. And I can remember sitting, on phone call after phone call with you and the emergency management team, as well as Charlie Brown, conference calls with area mayors and town managers, as well as the governor was getting on phone calls with us to talk about how we were going to handle day-to-day operations of running a town in COVID. As you mentioned, you're a family man. We all are. I am as well. So at that same time, we were grappling with how do our children, continue to learn. How do we put the fears that we are feeling at that time, and not express them to our children to keep them calm. You were kind of doing the same thing for at least me. I can probably speak for everybody on the council at the time that, we were feeling a lot of pressure on what to do, how to react, how to handle the situations that we were literally faced with by the minute at that point. You handled them very well at that time. And, I don't know if we need to close the buildings. We should close the buildings. We're closing the buildings, effective Monday. And, it flew by. Having you at the helm at that point, really, the town had entrusted the previous council to, appoint a town manager that could run the town And at that point, you definitely stepped forward and ran the town successfully throughout the pandemic, and you continue to do that. Great story about Josh and his neighbor. You know, it comes from like a family that puts the priorities first, and your family is definitely a strong priority for you, and it shows with your children. So it doesn't surprise me that he knew what to do at the time that, you know, the emergency took place. I wish you best with your family and with your kids growing up playing baseball and basketball here in town. I think you'll probably be able to see them on the field and on the courts a lot more. So I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and thank you for your strong leadership during the tenure as town manager here. Councilman O'Connor.
I just had one comment, well, two actually. First, thank you, Gary, for your service, and I do genuinely wish you and your family the very best. And then I had another comment that when Councilor Forrest was talking about you driving by his house at 9 PM and he's out there cutting his lawn, did at any point you pull over and tell him there are sound ordinances and ask him what exactly was he cutting at that dark?
This is during the summer.
Well, good.
Well,
Thanks.
Bit of levity. Yeah.
a huge conspiracy about Councilman Forrest cutting his lawn.
Yeah.
It's at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, no.
Drowning out the sounds of people partying on Somerset. Okay, well, thank you again for your service to the town, and on behalf of not only the council, but on behalf of the town, we do appreciate your steady hand at the helm. Moving on to council action, I believe we have a couple resignations. If I'm not mistaken, Councilman Forrest, I believe you have one resignation from the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee.
I do, Mayor. I move the resignation of Janet Baldinger of 226 Prospect Street. Her term was 3/2/20 to 6/30/22, and that's from the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded on the resignation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. And did I skip over one? I may have. Oh, I did. Do you want to do it in the absence of our deputy mayor?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Laura Bloomquist, 55 Windmill Hill, term of 3/15/21 to 6/30/24 from the Central Regional Tourism District.
Second.
Motion on this resignation has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And I believe there are three appointments. Councilman.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor and I were just discussing the appointments. If we could, I move Julie Lemos of 21 Clover Crest Road, 9/20/21 to 6/30/24, and Carol Bruce of 46 Stillman Walk from 9/20/21 to 6/30/24, both to the Wethersfield Heritage Commission.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Mayor, if I could also move Julie Lemos of 21 Clovercrest Road from 9/20/21 to 6/30/24 to the Central Regional Tourism District.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on, I don't believe we have any approvals of ordinance or resolutions tonight. No unfinished business from our August 26th meeting. We do have other business. This is a letter, and I believe members have seen the letter. This is a follow-up to our January 19th letter to then just the state delegation in Hartford on behalf of the council. It was at that point that what we had started to see, as a trend, not only in Wethersfield, but in our surrounding towns, was almost an epidemic of car break-ins. And early on, we were seeing that it was those cars that were left unlocked in people's driveways, usually at night, broken into, ransacked, and whatever valuables and possessions that they had in their vehicles at the time were stolen. It moved on to, unfortunately, with the advent of technology and how people start their cars, key fobs, which are an easy way to start your car, not having to have a key and go searching around. It does lend to easy theft if they are in close proximity, or unfortunately, in many cases, left in somebody's car. And we did see a number of those at the time. We wrote the letter back in January. Kudos to the town, going on social media, our Wethersfield Police Department at the time, surrounding towns, and just word of mouth. It was common to see that it's 9 o'clock. Have you locked your car? Did you remember to take your valuables out? Do you have your key fob in a safe location in your house that's not close to the car? If it's parked outside, shut your garage doors. There was a strong push for people to prevent break-ins, and it worked. It worked so well that would-be thieves or thefts would be looking, or burglars would be looking at cars, and if they were locked, which they should have been, they were unfortunately breaking windows at the time and gaining entry into them. So it wasn't, I guess, the work of the community to lock your cars and roll up your windows worked, but unfortunately break-ins had occurred, damage to vehicles had occurred. Over the summer months, Wethersfield and our surrounding towns had seen even greater uptick. Here in Wethersfield, just right here on Church Street, homeowner had confronted folks that were rifling through his car in his driveway, and by not taking action into his own hands, he simply just yelled, "What are you doing?" and ran out to see what was going on. Those that were breaking into his car drove off, but had turned back and fired a number of shots at that homeowner. This was just before the summer months, and people were starting to get back outside, enjoy the summer weather, and thought that they would be safe when they were, having their cars parked in their driveways. Unfortunately, it's even escalated since, not only here in Wethersfield with a carjacking on Jordan Lane of a homeowner and his vehicle in his driveway, but in surrounding towns, we had a resident in her place of business in Rocky Hill, carjacked in the middle of the day in the parking lot of her business. They stole her car. It was thankfully found a short time later outside of Rocky Hill, but it started to escalate from break-ins to shootings to carjackings. We saw it in Bishop's Corner in West Hartford. Most recently, it's a troubling story for those that don't know it. A 64-year-old lady had her car stolen while she was in the driver's seat. They kept her in the vehicle at the time that they were doing the whatever they do after they steal a car, and proceeded to cover her face and her head in a bag, and unfortunately they punched her or hit her, and she was in the hospital for some time. This was, not in our immediate surrounding community, but a very safe community that we would expect just a short couple miles from us here in Wethersfield. There's been some talk of a bipartisan group being formed up at the state legislature, and some work with our judicial departments, Chief State's Attorney's Office, and the legislature to address these. It's the, prerogative of, some of us on the council that more needs to be done. There has been calls to have a special session, and I believe there is one being called at the end of this month to deal with the governor's extension of his executive authority as it pertains to the pandemic. But this is a pandemic in and of itself, not only in Wethersfield, but in our surrounding towns. And we're calling on the governor and the legislature. I know the governor can call the legislature in. It's whether or not the legislature wants to abide by that call of a special session, or the legislature themselves can call themselves into a special session to deal with the escalation of crime in our communities. It's our hope that, we can join with a few others that have addressed this to their council to have a special session called. And, that is what we have written in this letter. We do have the letter from January as a reminder of our interest in this that dates back 9 months ago. So I would like, I can open it up for discussion first, but I would appreciate the support of this council to forward this letter on to our state delegation and the governor to address this serious issue affecting us. Is there any questions or comments on this? Councilman Forrest.
Just for clarification, we're talking about the September 20th, 2021 letter, basically today. On the agenda, it indicates a January 19th letter, so I'm just making sure we're talking about the current letter, which may be obvious, and I think it's a typo. But.
No, I think what the town I'll speak for the town manager, but it looks like it's a letter to the governor, Lamont and state delegation regarding escalation of violent crime, and then sub is the attached January 19th.
Yeah, that should have said. I apologize, that should have read supplemental, January 19th, 2021 letter to state delegation.
So we're approving the September 20th, 2021 letter today, though, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And attaching the January 19th letter to it.
Okay. So you and I have had a conversation earlier this week. This letter, the September 20th letter, seems to be appropriate. It's relatively broad. It allows, it urges the state to make the appropriate, to look into this issue and problem that we have in probably the entire state, but of course in central Connecticut, and urges them to have meaningful conversations to attack the problem, and allows this letter to not necessarily blame a particular cohort, but to allow the resources to come to bear for whatever they find is the appropriate actions that need to be taken. I agree with you. I mean, this is, it appears to be in some respects escalating to some things more serious. I have not just heard, but firsthand with people that have experienced these types of things, that has, and this is anecdotal, and I don't make decisions on anecdotes. We still have to look at the stats, but either way, when we look at the number of break-ins and the appeared escalation, we should at least be tackling this. We should at least be recognizing this along with a lot of the other issues. And to urge the legislature to do so seems very appropriate. And I think the wording is sufficient enough. Some of it might be a little bit excess, but the urging, I think you're going to find a unanimous vote here at this council, bipartisan, to say, state, let's start taking a look at this issue. Continue to take a look at this issue. See if there's some tweaks that can be done. I also talked to Councilor Biggs, who's on board. I know he's not here to vote, and he's certainly going to speak to himself, but we had that conversation. And this really seems to be an appropriate letter and reaction to an ongoing problem that is certainly in Wethersfield, but in the surrounding communities as well. And And with that, I think you're gonna, I think you'll be getting my vote and probably, hopefully, most of the people at this dais. Now, I will add that part of the letter indicates that perhaps, you know, some of the municipalities have tried to increase patrolling and done other acts which would help decrease some of this crime. And we did attempt in this budget to try to add some more patrol officers to do that. But as a council, we didn't put those officers on the beat, so to speak, or add them into our portfolio. So I would mention to this council that although this letter is very blanket and says that these things have happened at the local level, I haven't necessarily seen any of the statistics where a community has put on additional patrol officers or done various things, and the crime has gone up or the crime has gone down. And I don't think that we here have necessarily done that. Nonetheless, as the thrust of the letter and the seriousness of the content, I still think merits a yes vote to send it to the governor and to our state delegation.
Councilman Flanagan.
So I have a question about the terminology, because it starts off with, as a follow-up to our letter dated January 19th. So are we essentially saying we still feel the same way about those policies that we outlined in the letter in January? Or are we saying that to say we never heard back? Or, you know, will the January letter be included? Is that, you know, I'm just trying to figure out, are we still saying we feel the same way as in January, or are we trying to say something different here?
I think we're, speaking on my behalf, I think we're saying that we still feel the way we did, you know, back in January, but we recognize that since then, you know, it has escalated, and we are looking at it in more of a community focus on how can we, you know, prevent these, you know, actors, if they're our youth. And I would hope that the work that's going on at the legislature and with the judicial department would be able to figure out, you know, who these actors are and, you know, what steps need to be taken at the state level to address them. You know, the concerns that we brought up in this earlier letter in January were somewhat addressed by our delegation when we had them come in February. It was a priority, at least for some of us on the council at that point, while we were talking to them here in, you know, in this council chambers, to address it during the legislative session. There were some, you know, measures that were put forth to address it. Some very strong ones by some members of the legislature, some not so strong measures. Ultimately, I think they passed one measure to make it a crime or increase the penalty for actors that partake in criminal theft with a minor, and they are an adult. Kudos to the legislature for that. But I think the gist of what we had mentioned in the January 19th letter still holds true, for the simple fact that, you know, what we were trying to say then had not been addressed by the legislature in the most recent legislative session.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on this? You know, I don't know if we need to take a vote to forward this on to the governor, or just a simple, it's not a resolution or an ordinance.
I'm just looking to see how it was signed. Since it does have everyone's name on it, just to be safe, I would have, you know, I would just have everyone just agree that they sign on to it, so you could do it as a motion.
Okay.
Probably would want to, I'm sorry.
Councilman Forrest.
Yeah, just, you know, because well, I can tell you about my conversation with Councilman Biggs, I can't speak for him necessarily. So we may just want to, you may want to on the side get his okay to put his name on this particular
Okay,
document,
so what I will do is,
or something like that.
Yep. and I can reach out to the deputy mayor as well.
It does
Make
seem,
sure.
it does seem that on a having this pass on a bipartisan effort might serve the letter well. I
Right,
guess you might say. And if it is done like that, you might be able to affix, whether it's the seal, because it's not like a proclamation, it's like an official statement of the town. And that would take a vote, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So you may get a little more oomph, so to speak, or have it be more official. And that may allow you to sort of affix provide you a little bit more power when you sign it.
well,
Just some thoughts to you, Mayor.
Yeah, we can take a vote. Why not?
We'll vote no?
well, I think I can reach out to Councilman Biggs and Deputy Mayor for their approval of it or disapproval of it. And
Perhaps
if,
we could, I'm sorry.
and if the council so obliges, if I get their approval, would that suffice for me to be able to send this to the delegation to the governor?
I think what you could do is make a motion with the proviso that any counselor who wishes to have their name removed from the letter could do so after consultation with the mayor, something like that. Just to provide an even playing field for anyone that wasn't present.
Okay,
Trying to be fair here.
Yeah.
And if you vote, you vote. And if your name's not on the letter, then you'll know. And that could be a nice transparency for the public, I suppose.
okay. So with that said, if the council so indulges, I will reach out to those members not present, and if they are not on, they are not on, but I will make a motion to forward this letter on to the governor and the legislature, or legislative delegation, provided that those undersigned do attest that they support what is written in the letter.
Second.
Any other comments? Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Ayes have it. Okay, moving on, and I see Peter in the audience. We have the Connecticut Municipal Cultural District grant, or program for us to decide whether or not we want to get in this or not.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and town councilors and town manager Gary Evans. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Heritage Commission. They have asked that I approach the council and go through the process to pursue Old Wethersfield's designation as a Connecticut Municipal Cultural District. We're looking to designate a walkable portion of Old Wethersfield as part of the program. It's a relatively new program, adopted in 2019 through Public Act 19-143. Basically, it provides and documents our commitment to the arts and culture. And as you know, Old Wethersfield is rich in heritage, but also a burgeoning arts and cultural set of organizations. So we have reached out to our partnering organizations, the Arts Academy, the Webb Dean Stevens Museum, the Historical Society, and others, and they all have indicated their support as well for the designation. So there's a process we would have to go through, and some public meetings in order to pursue the designation, but it starts with a letter of commitment signed by the mayor, supported by the town council, that allows us to start that process. So I did include references to the DECD website, so hopefully you had a chance to take a look at that. I did also provide you with a copy of the Public Act, which gives a brief and concise overview of the program, and also a letter of support from the Wethersfield Arts Academy, just to show that there is that commitment from those organizations to pursue this as well. In addition to the support, the Heritage Commission has asked that they be designated as the Cultural Commission to carry out the responsibilities of the Act, and they did vote and agree to do that as well. So this is just a start, but it does start with a letter of intent from the mayor, and we are also required to designate an organization in the community to act in this capacity. So those are the two things we're asking for you to consider tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point, but that's a brief synopsis of this particular agenda item.
Great. Are there any questions for Peter? I'll use up.
There's no financial commitment at this point. It does hopefully open up funding opportunities down the road, but I just want to also make you aware of that. There is no financial or budgetary impact.
Great. Yeah, that was one of my questions for you. I did read the Public Act, and it did not, spell out whether or not, but it is good to know that, down the line, we may be eligible for some DECD grant money for this. Just, do you have a, no. Not so much a question, but just simply a comment about, this is all of Weathersfield, if I'm not mistaken, not just Old Weathersfield?
They ask that we designate a concentrated location where there are a concentrated number of institutions that provide arts and cultural experiences. So obviously Old Weathersfield with the Main Street, we're looking at designating a long portion of Main Street, which includes the shops, also Webb Dean Stevens, the Historical Society. So they do ask that you concentrate it in your community,
Okay.
not as the entire community. There is a walkable component to that, where they want to see people have that ability to do that. So given all those criteria, we felt that a portion of Old Weathersfield would be the highest concentration of institutions like that meet the criteria.
Great. And I must concur that, Old Weathersfield has seen almost like a rebirth or rejuvenation down there over the last couple of years. And, since the governor had lifted some of the mandates that were placed on businesses and on residents alike, that, that community couldn't be more vibrant right now. And, we've all, I think those of us on the dais up here had gotten a chance to tour the Webb Dean Stevens Museum and their new cultural center and welcoming center. A great addition to that museum, and well fit into the historic district look of those three houses there. The Academy of the Arts as well, they're doing a great job. I think they're going to come before P&Z at some point soon, if they haven't done it already, for some additional work that they want to have done there. I think this is great. It would be a great designation for a great area that we've seen. You've been instrumental in a lot of that work. You and I go to a lot of those meetings together. And, the Bike Walk Weathersfield group and the walkability. This council had voted on funds for more safe, walkable streets down there, and you provided me some information about the work that has been done on sidewalks, handicap ramps, as well as line striping to narrow. And I see Derek here, he's always said it, you narrow the line striping to give the visual effect that it's a narrower road, which slows down traffic. We're hoping that they work, but they also increase the expansion of the bike walk lanes. So with your hard work and Derek's work in Old Weathersfield, like I said earlier, we've seen kind of a rejuvenation of that area over the last year or two, and we appreciate that. So I think this will complement that very well, and that designation. Any other questions, concerns, comments to Peter while we have them? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the chief elected official, Mayor Michael Rell, to submit a letter of intent and endorsement to establish a cultural district for a portion of the Old Weathersfield Historic District per the provisions of Public Act Number 19-143, an act concerning the establishment of municipal cultural districts, and to designate the Weathersfield Heritage Commission as the town's cultural district commission to carry out the duties and responsibilities of the Public Act.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions on this? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Pete.
And I see Mike O'Neill has come in. Thank you, Mike, because if I had to explain the budget transfers after the other day you talking to me, I don't think I could do quite justice as you would. So, thank you.
Good evening, Mike O'Neill, Director of Finance. The item before you is really just a clerical addendum to the budget transfers that the council passed at the August 2nd meeting. You will probably recall at that meeting, Town Manager and I prepared a proposal. We were projecting unexpended funds from the fiscal 21 budget of approximately $1.2 million. And the proposal that was adopted was to transfer $815,000 of the 1.2 for use in reserve accounts and capital projects, and then the other roughly $440,000 would lapse to fund balance. What I overlooked at the time when I prepared that was just some reallocation of costs between lines. So what ended up happening was we reduced some department budgets with the transfers, and as we prepared for the year-end audit, which started today, we had to make some reallocation between accounts, and it resulted in putting 8 departments over budget. The largest adjustment was just moving about $200,000 of matching 401A, which is the pension contribution that the town matches for the newer employees that are not in the defined benefit plan. But it was about $200,000. The long and the short of it is it all gets booked to one line, and then afterwards we reallocate it, and we simply hadn't done that for several payrolls, and it was something that we just picked up on in the last couple of weeks as we prepared for the audit.
Mike, if you don't mind me just jumping in, we had a question from one of the public speakers earlier about wearing a mask while you're up there, just because other public speakers use that area, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Not at all, but I feel fine, for what that's worth. All right, so the result was, with the budget revisions done on August 2nd, there were 8 departments that were over budget. So what this proposal does is simply reallocates. So there's one department that went way down because that's where the costs had been booked. Take it from that line, put it on the other 8 lines where the departments were over. No net effect on total expenditures, and no change in the amount that we're projecting to roll to fund balance. So again, it's really just bookkeeping. I apologize for having to come to you and do this, but that was an oversight on my part.
No problem. Any questions or comments for Mike O'Neill on this? Seemed pretty straightforward. I guess it's good that the audit is coming up next month, because if it had not been for the audit, something like this might not have been caught in time, and we would have to address it at that point. So,
Right, yeah, no, we've got procedures in place. Again, it's always a bit of a scramble to get ready for the August meeting to do these adjustments. Again, it just should have been taken care of, it wasn't, but no harm. The council has until the end of September to make budget transfers, so again, it's just a minor adjustment to those 8 lines.
okay. And we need a motion for this?
Make a motion to approve fiscal year 2021 budget revisions to address estimated budget overages in 8 departments.
Second.
Motion has been, well, Sue needs to know which one.
Tie goes to the winner.
Motion has been made and seconded on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Mike.
I believe our final council action is the bid that Derek has. This is the purchase of software for repaving, not only of parking lots, but of town roads too, as I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight for a project that we've historically done every 5 years. It involves having a consultant visually inspect all of our local roads. Excuse me. It's about 105 miles, along with 24 public parking lots. The last time we did this was in the fall of 2016 for our roads. The last time the parking lots were evaluated as far as all town-wide was in 2002, so it's been a while. We issued a request for proposals to perform both the pavement evaluations and also to purchase software to help with our asset management of roads and other features that we have here in town. We received 4 submittals. Based on review of those submittals, as far as what project deliverables would be and software capability, we recommend award to the Beta Group Incorporated, along with purchase of their Manage My Road software. Their scope of work will include, as I said, visually inspecting all the roads. We'll get pavement condition index values, PCI values that you're familiar with hearing, surface distresses, average curb reveal, pavement markings for all our roads and parking lots. Final report will have data analysis associated with it and recommendations for repairs for the various roads that they inspect and parking lots, along with cost assessments. So that will help for us develop our future paving programs and a CIP program for replacements and reconstruction as needed. The asset management software can be used for our roads and parking lots, but it's also expandable. So we can expand it to utilize it for our traffic signs, sidewalk ramps. Those are all things that we have planned coming down the road, and the software will allow us to do that. This firm is well qualified for this type of work. They've completed many of these types of projects in Connecticut. The software itself runs pretty much on Microsoft Access and ArcGIS Online, which are both software packages we currently have and use. So it's familiar and it's consistent with what we're using here in town. And just looking at it over the next 5-year programming period, they ended up being the lowest cost to complete the initial work, and then also looking at the software setup and the ongoing annual costs were very low with them. So our recommendation was to use them this time around for our assessments.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions for Derek on this software program? Councilman Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. And Derek, this is it's not really specific to this bid, but looking through the vendors here, there is one local company that submitted a bid, and I'm just out of curiosity, like how is that weighed when you're determining which vendor to select? I mean, does a local vendor get priority, or does it really just come down to the cost?
We do consider them for their proximity to us, for responsiveness and being available. Beta is really right over the town line into Hartford, so they're right at the north end of Southstein Highway, so they're very close as well. I think our bidding procedures allow for, if a local bidder is within 10% of the low bid and they're willing to do it at the low bid price, we can consider them for a low bid award. In this case, I don't think the numbers worked out that way compared to our low bid. There was a lower initial bid for just the evaluations, but they were out of Canada, and I think looking at how they were going to look at things, it was going to be a little bit different. They didn't do a lot of U.S. work, so I was uncomfortable with them. But we did give consideration to that firm and the firm we selected. We have worked with that other firm for many years. I mean, they've been great. I have no issues with them. I just think looking at it from what we were going to get out of the project to begin with, and then also looking at our long-term costs, I felt that was going to be more reasonable at this point to go with Beta.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I do like the fact that you do consider local companies. We'd all like to support them as much as we can. So thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments for Derek? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion for this item?
Make a motion to award the contract to Beta Group, Inc. from Hartford CT to perform local road and parking lot pavement evaluations and for purchase of associated asset management software.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
And thank you for, choosing the lowest bid on this. They all seem to come right around the same area, but if we can get the lowest bid, we can save taxpayer money on that one. So,
Absolutely.
we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We do have item 5 on our agenda. These are ordinance resolutions and appointments for introduction. You guys did hear earlier from a number of the volunteer firefighters. That is an ordinance to amend our Chapter 149-17, which is a tax abatement for volunteer firefighters. I believe that's also in your packet. You guys can read through that. Basically, what that does is it would group in those retired firefighters who retired prior to this ordinance taking effect in 2000, if I remember correctly, and had achieved the age of, or reached the age of 62 and 20 plus years of good service with the volunteer fire department, to go in line with the retirees that currently take benefit from this. There is a second what was the first one? That was an ordinance. Second one is a resolution for the decommissioning of Brainerd Airport that had been provided by Councilman Hill for introduction tonight. We will take that up at our next scheduled meeting in October. And then we have minutes, which I believe Gary had attached to our packet. There are a number of them. Just bear with the town clerk's office in transcribing these. We did have a number of meetings in June that not only the budget adoption meeting on the 14th, but we did have a meeting on the 15th, and we could not adopt those throughout the summer, just as town clerk had been working to get those completed. There's also August 2nd's regular meeting, and then the most recent, and I don't know, was it, I always had the 26th, but I guess it was the 23rd, was the August special meeting of August 23rd. These are all in our packet here for you to read or have read. Any questions, comments, concerns of the minutes?
Mr. Mayor, if you could deviate from the agenda and put public comment in front of minutes, I'm going to address the minutes.
Well,
If I talk after you do what you're going to do, it's too late to tell you.
well, we have a procedure for the minutes, to adopt the minutes that are before us, and then we do have public comment after.
Mr. Mayor, the minutes are incorrect, and I can prove it.
Okay, well, we can adopt the minutes tonight. In your public comment, you can mention the concerns, and if we need to amend, we can amend minutes after, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 14th, 15th, August 2nd, and August 23rd.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Minutes are adopted. Now we have public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? I think we have one person.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, if I may, my name is Edward Peruta. I was here for what I considered the dog and pony show about Chief James Citran. I've known Jimmy for a lot of years. There's no doubt that I support him. But I think the record will reflect, and I speak through the mayor to ask the town clerk a question, whether I appeared in the clerk's office and looked at the minutes and asked her to check it with the video, and she found that it was not correct. Am I correct, Madam Clerk? I showed up in the clerk's office questioning the minutes.
Actually, this,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's a video of that hearing and the end where Councilman Peltier motioned, quote, "to dismiss Chief James Citran from office pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 7-278 for just cause," unquote. That's not the way it happened, because Attorney Slater had to ask her to amend it to include for just cause. That amendment was never seconded, or the motion was never seconded, and I went to the clerk and said, "This is wrong. This is not the way it happened." And I believe that Councilman Peltier, because of the importance of that motion, would remember the town attorney suggesting the additional verbiage that she put onto the motion. And she did. Mayorel, okay, we'll call this meeting back to, or this hearing back to, I'm nervous. Can you do this? This is Attorney Rachel Baird. I work for her.
Sure. My name's Rachel Baird, 24 Lewis Street, Wethersfield. Just wanted to help Ed out here by reading out a transcript that we prepared of what occurred at the June 15th, 2021 meeting. And Ed is attempting to make the point that that's inconsistent with the minutes. When the council came back from executive session, Mayor Rell said, okay, we'll call this meeting back to, or this hearing back to, we'll reconvene this hearing we have before us. And Attorney Slater was inaudible. And then Mayor Rell said, a motion, I could present a motion, what's going on after the deliberations and fact-finding and hearing from both council, the chief and the town manager. There was a motion to dismiss Chief Citran per Connecticut General Statute Section 7-278. Attorney Slater said someone will have to make a motion as presented by the town manager, so there is a motion and a motion second. And Mayor Rell said, so do you want to make a motion? And Councilor Pelletier said, I'll make a motion to dismiss the Chief James Citran from office pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 278. And the deputy mayor said second. And Attorney Slater said, I would just suggest that having heard all the evidence for just cause. And Councilor Pelletier said, okay, I'll amend that to add for just cause. And Mayor Rell said, motion has been made and seconded. Discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye, opposed, nay, ayes have it. Motion carries 7-1. Well, we're missing Kevin and Pat. That's right, 6-1. So Ed is making the point that the minutes appear to leave out some of the dialogue and some of the motion activity that occurred with regard to that dismissal. Is that correct, Ed?
Thank you. If I could. I'm a stickler for words. I'm a stickler for rules. These minutes are a historical document in this town. 100 years from now, somebody will go online or walk into the clerk's office and open up the minutes. And they will say, what happened in the council chamber in the early morning hours of, I think it was June 16th, or the day it was early morning hours. Mr. Mayor, it was a dog and pony show from the beginning right to this motion. I'm not blaming Councilor Peltier. This meeting was being run by the town attorney.
As a stickler for the rules, Mr. Peruta, we have a 5-minute time limit, and that limit is up. We appreciate you coming in tonight.
You don't like what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor. You don't like it, but it's the truth. This is a transcript
we will have this conversation, and we will, thank you for bringing it to our
Thank
attention.
you very much.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. First of all, Mr. Peruta, I don't doubt what you see or don't see in those minutes. I've seen where the movie presentation had changed. A piece had been taken out. And I had nobody to complain to. I did talk to a couple of people about it, but I don't doubt it. Again, this is a crooked town, dishonest town. A presentation with a gap in it. I mean, cut out and spliced back so you never even saw it. So I believe what he says, because it's happened in other situations here, not during your reign, prior to, okay? But the fact is, it happens. And that's, I wanted to go far with that. But to who? The mayor? He was part of this. The mayor was part of letting that gap happen.
Just for the record, it wasn't just.
So I'm not going any further, but I agree with him. The records are not right, and they continue not to be right. Anyway, what I'd like to say is, Gary, I was kind of surprised to read in the paper that you were leaving, and I wish you well in your new venture, wherever it may be, wherever it may take you. But good luck. Gary, you also spoke tonight about a $125,000 award from some, I think it was HHS or somewhere like that, for alcohol and drug use. Is that for the drug use, the alcohol people and the people that are alcoholics and the new upcoming drug dealers and drug people? Is that to help all them out? Right? Because the state of Connecticut is now going to have marijuana, recreational, and all that other stuff. We're going to have these kinds of programs to help bail out. You know, tonight the mayor also talked about kids stealing cars. You know, we need jail time for these young people. You need to put a threat that you do this is what happens, and the law should follow through. Unfortunately, we've had a whole different society running the state of Connecticut, where we've emptied out our jails of a lot of people who belong in jail. And that puts a lot of us in fear. You know? Just about protection. I mean, we're lucky we have a police force that protects us, because we're not allowed, or we shouldn't be carrying weapons with us, but I understand why people do. I certainly do, because you, when the time comes, you need to protect yourself, because our law legislator, I should say, they've turned a lot of bad people loose on the rest of us. Next, it was mentioned tonight about the Brainerd Airport. You know, I support keeping the Brainerd Airport, and I don't know why the town of Wethersfield is supporting Hartford in order to give them revenue. You know, they say, oh, the airport's not providing any revenue or taxes. But, you know, I look at the situation where there's professional aerospace workers there. They are working on aircrafts, whether it's jets or whatever kind of fuel that's being used. You know, these are professional people. There are businesses there that are generating and doing commerce and cranking out taxes in the long run to the state of Connecticut, bringing in sales taxes. There's all this stuff going on, buying parts for aircrafts. That generates money for the state of Connecticut. Maybe the land doesn't pay us real estate tax, but on the other hand, I really believe that there's a lot of livelihoods that are at risk because Wethersfield is joining Hartford And then what happens if Hartford gets to redevelop that airport? Are they going to ask the state, give back to the state taxpayers who have been paying oodles and barrels of money to them to keep them floating? Or are they just going to collect that extra tax and still keep taking from the state taxpayer? You know, there's got to be some equity. You know, people talk about equity. Well, you know, I don't see any equity in this thing at all for the workers. What are you going to do with them? You know, the whole thing doesn't sound good at all. And the next is, you talked tonight about art and culture, having a cultural district. And I was thinking the same thing you did, Mayor, about the financial burden that the town is now going to have to carry with that group. I mean, look at the financial burden we carry with the Historic Society. They collect, what, 30, 50, 60, whatever it is, thousands of dollars from Lucky Lou on a building owned by the town of Wethersfield, set up with a 50-year lease, thanks to Mr. Forrest, who signed on with that back 20 years ago, or whatever years it was. I sat in the meeting. There wasn't a mention of
Mr. Young?
comment at all from the council members
minutes
or anybody else.
Are up. If you could summarize?
It's up?
It is.
Get rid of these masks, huh? Let's do something about that.
5 minutes goes by fast, but I'm
These
sure
masks
we will
are
see.
horrible.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Not seeing anybody else to speak. We do have a executive session that we have to go into. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.